Hey, everybody. I want to introduce you to a brand new friend of mine, John Long. We actually have kind of mutual friends. John lives back in Louisville. I used to live in Louisville, and that's how we have mutual friends. But John's story recently came to me, and as you know, because you listen to Flatirons all the way from Kentucky, is that around here we really care about what God's doing in the hearts of men. And you've been on a journey as a man for the last several years, and I think there's a lot of us that can really benefit from your story. And I know that's how you kind of end it. Mm-hmm. Like your story is like, what do you say to somebody going through what you're about to explain to us? And at the end of it is, God can use it, right? And you've seen that happen. So I'm getting ahead of the story though. So let's go back a few years and kind of tell about growing up. I know you were born in Memphis, but you lived a lot of time in Louisville. So just talk about like how you grew up and leading up to that marriage and the thought processes, and then we'll get to the marriage in a second.
Yeah, sounds good. So I grew up in Memphis. I lived there for 24 years, and just really, honestly, I grew up in the church. My parents, as like the Lecrae song, my parents drug me to church. I was a drug baby.
Yeah.
So
nice.
Yeah. So basically, just grew up in the church. Really grew up knowing the gospel. Mm-hmm. Up here, but it was really hard to connect here a lot of the time, and just got into a place in college where I really started wanting to deepen my faith. Mm-hmm. And
where'd you go to school?
So I went to the University of Memphis, graduated from there in 2011, and with an education degree.
Okay.
So during my time there, I had several friends just really push me to deepen my faith there.
Okay.
So that's what I did, and it ended up, I ended up going so deep that I wanted to go deeper. So I ended up going to seminary.
And what did you want to pursue? Seminary, what did you think that was going to lead to?
Yeah, so I thought I was going to end up on the mission field, working for a nonprofit organization, helping integrate refugees into a culture that's not theirs.
Yeah.
So that's what I really wanted to do with my life.
Awesome.
I had several people in college kind of like take me underneath their wing. One of them was like, "Hey, you're going to go to Vietnam with me next year." And I'm like, "What? No, I don't think I want to go to Vietnam." And he came to me like 2 months later. He goes, "Hey, we need to start raising support for Vietnam." I was like, "I told you I'm not going." But then I ended up in Vietnam.
Of course you did.
So, so all that to say, I really wanted to spend the rest of my life on the mission field. Graduated seminary in 2015 with an MA in missiology. I was talking to 2 different sending agencies and met
So sending agency would be like who you associate to get like vetted and everything to send you on the mission field.
To make sure that I am healthy enough to be on the mission field, for one, and whether or not they're going to give me funds or, you know.
Yeah, I'm just defining terms.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
It was going...
Two of them.
Yeah, right. I was talking to 2 of them, hadn't made up my mind yet, and met my wife, Katie. Ended up...
So, time out. This is the phrase that changes so many of our lives. And then I met a girl.
Yeah.
Right? Right. Which could be a great thing, and could even start as a great thing, but not always stay great.
Yeah.
Right? So, Katie? Mm-hmm. Okay. So you met Katie. Keep going.
Yeah, I met Katie. Ended up not going to the mission field. Got married to her 14 months later after I met her. And
so you met her going to the mission field. You dated her, married her, and somewhere in there she was like, I don't want to do that.
It's not that she didn't want to do that. It's that when the 2 of us got together through a lot of different conversations, it just wasn't really where her heart was.
Okay.
Which was fine with me because, you know, I would have rather have been married than go to the mission field. That's just kind of something that I decided on my own. And, ended up getting married to her, and 14 months after I started dating her, and come to find out, in marriages we all have stuff that goes wrong. With me, with her, with any marriage, there's 2 people involved.
Right.
And there was, for me, I like to just bypass things. I'm a 9 on the Enneagram. I don't know if Flatirons is big in the Enneagram world, but in Louisville, there's a lot of people. Just about any therapist you go and see, you're gonna talk about the Enneagram.
I've never read the book, but everyone tells me I'm an 8.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, apparently.
But
I don't know if that's a compliment or not, though. Anyway, you're a 9.
Yeah, I'm a 9.
You don't like to confront.
Yeah, I don't like to confront. I like to deflect. I don't like conflict at all. And that was a huge struggle in my marriage. I never wanted to say something to disappoint or make my wife mad at me. Because I didn't want to deal with the conflict. I didn't know how to deal with it because I've never dealt with it in my own family growing up.
So that was kind of the norm of your family. Don't talk about the hard stuff. Don't confront. Don't avoid conflict.
Yeah.
Kind of peacekeepers instead of peacemakers. Okay.
So through all of this, I decided to become a pilot. I'd grown up wanting to become a pilot and ended up talking through it with my wife. My wife said, I'll make the money while you go to school, and then we'll get you to where you want to be. It's like, okay, sounds great. Well, about a month and a half into me quitting my job and pursuing my dreams, I ended up finding out that my wife wanted to take a break. She called me up and she was like, hey, I don't feel like we're connecting well right now. I need to take a break for the night, figure some things out, and then we can talk tomorrow. Of course, like, I had all the questions in the world, like, what's going on? Am I about to lose my marriage? What do I need to do?
Any tension leading up to that phone call?
Yeah, I could tell over the past probably month there was some tension there.
Okay.
But me not wanting to deal with conflict, I didn't bring it up.
Right, sure.
So in that moment, what I saw the best thing that I could do was give her space. That night, I found out, I checked her location to make sure she got to her parents' house safely, because I knew that she was at a really good friend's house and she was at that house drinking, so I wanted to make sure that she got home safely. And checked her location, and she was at a hotel. And I freaked out. Didn't know what to do, so I called my best friend. I said, Andy, what am I supposed to do here? She's at a hotel. What's going on? And he said, you can't call her. You can't text her. You have to give her the space. I then got off the phone with him and called my brother up. He said, you gotta leave her there for tonight. I know that's the hardest thing that you can do, but don't go to the hotel. And I didn't go to the hotel. I didn't sleep at all that night. I was super anxious, worried, all the above. Ended up waiting until the next day, about 2 p.m. She called me and said, hey, I'm coming home. We're going to talk. I said, okay. So she gets to the house. She sits in the chair across the living room, and she basically says, I want a divorce. You don't fulfill me on many levels. And I said, well, are we going to even work through this at all? And she didn't really want to. I asked what she was doing that night. She did not tell me what she was really doing. She said, well, I went to my parents' house, stayed there last night, really thought about things. And I said, well, if we're gonna make it through this together, I'm gonna need to know the truth about what happened last night. I know you were at a hotel. And she just sank into her chair, and she didn't say a word for probably about a minute or two. And at that point, I called Cliff and was like, we need help. I start meeting up with the executive pastor of the church, not the head counseling pastor, but the executive pastor. Every time that I meet up, the counseling pastor is supposed to be there. But every time I go in to meet up with these dudes, the executive pastor's like, yeah, the counseling pastor's not going to be here today, so this other pastor's going to step in. Which really kind of threw me off. I was like, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need someone who's not, let alone not licensed in therapy, I don't need those people. But the head counseling pastor wasn't even licensed in therapy. He's just a biblical counselor. And I was like, if I'm going to go through this, I need at least a biblical counselor who's certified to be in the room with me and her. And every time that she met up with them, he and his wife were in the room with her. But he never was in the room with me. That hurt me.
Yeah.
Real bad.
So you're finding out that the counseling department feels like they're siding with or less biased towards Katie.
Yeah.
And you're just getting whoever's available that day. And that hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where do you go from there?
Well, I showed a lot of anger throughout this entire process, a lot of bitterness throughout this entire process. I mean, granted, my wife cheated on me with an old
Did she ever admit that?
Yeah.
She did admit
She
that?
did admit that. She even wrote a letter out to me apologizing for the thing that she did. Or really, it wasn't even, to me, it came across, I'm sorry I hurt you, but I'm not sorry for what I did. In the letter, after she said that she was sorry, it included a but you are angry and bitter. That's why I want to leave you. I know that the pastor from the stage is you can't put a time frame on healing. He has said that before. And yet I was in a Zoom meeting with the head pastor, and he said, "You've been angry and bitter for too long." And they ended up giving her permission to divorce me.
What about the adultery? Did they ever talk about that?
They did, but so they were trying everything that they could to not alienate Katie, which I'm completely okay with. But, listening to a lot of your sermons and Jesse's sermons here at Flatirons, you can't just move on from things. You can't just sweep stuff underneath the rug. You have to hit them head on. So that's kind of, part of what I've learned through this entire thing is that before, I wasn't an angry person. I'm a 9, I don't deal with conflict. So if I don't deal with conflict, I'm probably not going to be very angry all the time. Well, I became an angry person real quick. And I didn't know how to deal with it because I've never dealt with it in my life.
Sure, yeah. If you could have done any of it different, so I can't talk about Katie because she's not here and I don't know her, right? So, as you go through that process, what did you learn? From this perspective, was there anything you would have done different?
Yes, there are certain aspects of the story that I would have done differently. I would have pushed for therapy, actual licensed therapy, a lot harder. But
Again, she might have said no.
Yeah.
But you would have pushed for it.
Yeah, but I trusted these dudes. They were involved in the situation at the church. I trusted them blindly. And whenever I started pushing back on some of the things at the end, that's when I felt like it fell all apart for me.
Okay.
I think that's one of the main things that I would change throughout the entire process.
So you can't control leadership, but you would have probably looked for better leadership.
Yeah.
Right? You're part of a community. You had friends, Christian friends, and things around you. How did you feel supported by them? Or because a lot of times I see people going through divorce is they pick a side, and somebody that you used to call friend, all of a sudden you have leprosy or something like that. Did you experience any of that from your Christian community? Or?
Yeah. So I had 3 really close guy friends in Louisville.
Okay.
And one of them vamped out as soon as he could, probably a month into it, which is kind of funny to me because I helped him through a divorce. And a month in, he was gone. And the other 2, they held on until probably 6-7 months down the road. And they kept seeing me so angry and so bitter that they couldn't deal with the anger and the bitterness. And not everybody can hold the shit that needs to be held when you're going through shit.
You got to have a safe place to let it go, right?
Yeah. And
so what was your anger at Katie? Was your anger, well, of course, I'm certainly, okay? Was your anger at the situation? Was your anger at, no one's listening to me or hearing me? Was your anger at yourself, the universe, God? I mean, or all of the above? I mean, like, who did you want to yell at?
Near the end, I wanted to yell at all the leadership at my church.
Okay.
Throughout the entire process, at the beginning, I wanted to yell at the thing that Katie had did to me. Mm-hmm. I didn't necessarily want to yell at Katie. I wanted to yell at the thing that she did.
And why not Katie?
Because I loved her.
Okay.
And I wanted things to work out. And they didn't. And that's okay.
So she goes through this divorce. And now you're sitting there with, I'm not married anymore.
Yep.
And you've been a Christian your whole life. That brings on all kinds of messages.
I did everything right.
So what do you do now?
You know, part of me is still in the past. You know, I'm still wanting this life from the past, but not really being able to grab a hold of the life ahead of me.
Okay.
And it was really hard to grab a hold of that. And it took a while to grab a hold of that.
It's taking a while, I'd say. Is it present tense?
Yes, because everyone that has been through traumatic experiences, there are good days and there are bad days.
Yep.
And there are still bad days.
Yeah, there are.
The bad days aren't nearly as big as they once were. They're a lot more subtle.
Yeah. Isn't it funny though how a trigger can take you right back?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I get it. So you're really strong and brave, I think. Have courage, all right, to say this, because I think right now there are some men going, dude, I get it. Like, I did everything, and I'm angry, and all right. So, but, you know, not to go back to what that pastor said to you, but what you've heard me teach here too, is that anger a lot of times is waiting for something to happen to make something right. Okay? And that's a debt. There's a debt that needs to be paid. So if somebody divorced you, cheated on you, abused you, lied to you, whatever, there's just something in our head, right? And I talked about this even one time going, I have a list of people, if Jesus gave me a pen or a pass, I'd stab them. I really wouldn't bury their bodies, all right? That's not a good way to live.
No, absolutely not.
But it is reality for it, right? And so there comes a time where you have to make decisions. Go, what am I going to do? What could Katie do to make it right? What could that church do to make it right? That you go like, oh, we're all good now. And the answer is nothing, right? So what are you doing with that anger now? When it comes up? Yeah.
So I went through liminal. An unknown weekend.
It's kind of like the new version of a lot of these men have heard of Crucible, and now Liminal's kind of like a new version, like 2.0 or something. You know, I think it's great. So
also during your Man Up, Man Down series, like I've heard you say a lot of things like, "Yep, he's gotten that from Liminal."
Yeah, sure.
But Liminal really helped me kind of not necessarily tame it, but know what to have the right tools to do what I needed to do in order to take control.
Yeah. Harness the energy and the anger instead of it owning you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and basically Micah DeYoung, he's the one that pushed me to do all of this. He's been there almost since day one of me finding out that this all happened.
Yeah.
And he looked me in the eye and he told me, you know, you're going to be okay on the other side, but you got to do your work. You got to do your work.
How'd that go over on you?
I hated it.
Yeah,
I hated hearing that.
Yeah, sure.
Because part of me didn't want to have to do my work.
Yeah. And the reason he could say that is he walked a similar journey, right?
Yeah.
So, as much as you hated hearing that, and as much as what I'm about to ask you to say, all right, or share if it's right? There's some guys that are leaning in going, so, you know, what am I supposed to do? We don't give a lot of advice,
Mm-hmm.
but in your experience, what's worked and what hasn't?
What's worked is doing the work.
Okay. Which means?
Which you have to work on yourself.
Okay.
And that first step for me was going to liminal.
Okay.
I tried to do it various other ways. Nothing clicked. Nothing helped me until I went to liminal.
So we talked about messages, right?
Mhm.
We're gonna get into liminal now, okay? You walked in there with a message that was playing in your head
Mm-hmm.
about who you are, what you're worth, all that kind of stuff, and you walked out with a different message.
Yeah.
So are you willing to share kind of what those two messages? You don't have to tell how they changed or the process or anything like that, but when you showed up,
I was defeated.
Defeated.
Yeah.
So what kind of man is defeated?
One who's not strong.
Okay.
One who just gives up. One who, I don't know, just the whole, because I went in feeling depleted. I went in feeling weak. I went in feeling like, what's the rest of my life gonna look like if I get divorced? And then on the other side, when I left there, I left a warrior. I know on your podcast you had Nathan Roush on here at one point, and he talked about being a warrior.
Yeah.
And how King David was a warrior, and just going through all of David's story and seeing that I have the same power that resided in David to get up and walk out of this huge pit that I was in. Man, it was life-changing.
Yeah. David fought a lot of battles, right?
Yeah.
And he won some and he lost some. He just never stopped fighting. And that's the thing that I see in you, is that, man, you just got hit over and over and over again. And even when you felt like quitting, I mean, you're still going.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's possible.
It is.
It doesn't feel like it though, right?
Not in the moment.
Yeah, I was telling somebody the other day, it's like everything makes sense in the rearview mirror, not so much in the headlights.
Yep.
You know, and it's like and nobody can understand this until they just keep going, right?
Yeah.
And you look back and go, God was faithful. You're stronger than you think you are. God's better than what you think he is. And all things really are possible. Okay? Thanks a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully it helps somebody.
It will. I already know it will,
Yeah.
because I think, what we're trying to do is talk about stuff nobody else will talk about.
Yeah.
And that takes courage. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, dude.
This is John.